Hello again. Thank you. I'm thinking maybe we need Elevate and the team to write down all those indigenous businesses. I was trying to scratch them down, so maybe they can do a post on Instagram with some of those businesses, right? It would be so fabulous. So I will make a mental note of trying to make that happen. All right, Canada has rapidly emerged as a global leader in FinTech with a dynamic ecosystem that's transforming how businesses operate. Whether you're building the next game-changing solution or using existing tools to scale, understanding the evolution of FinTech in Canada is crucial. Here to discuss what sets Canada apart and what you should be prioritizing for your company, really important information, please join me in welcoming the CEO of Moneris, James Hicks, and they've been such a great supporter to Elevate. Come on out and thank you so much.
Thank you for the kind introduction, Amber. It's great to be here at Elevate Festival. It's been a year since I joined Moneris, and this is something I've been looking forward to come back to since I started. With all the great business ideas and discussions that are happening here this year, we're so excited to be here. I'm so excited to be here too. So you're all asking, why am I here? Well, we all live in a rapidly evolving business environment. Whether you're a FinTech, a small business, a large business, we're all faced with enormous change and choice in the digitally enabled world that we all live in. And like many of you, I've experienced both success and failure throughout my career. So I'm hoping that by sharing some of my observations, it'll help inform some of the decisions that you all might face in your path forward. So I'd like to talk about today how the digital revolution can play out differently in different markets, and why Canada is a pretty exciting place to be, actually, despite the current challenges we all know we're facing, and what trends to keep an eye on as we all work to take advantage of the next wave of consumers. Let me start here. I have a deep appreciation, I think, of the challenges business face regardless of their size. And that's rooted early in my career when I worked for a very small company. We were focused on North America, and we were trying to figure out how to break into the US market. And if you've ever worked with a small company with big ambitions, you know that it's one of those jobs where you're going to work all hours doing whatever is needed to drive your growth journey. It's hard work, it's super energizing when things are going well, and it can feel super crushing when they don't. And this isn't limited to smaller companies. All companies face similar challenges, just at different scale. So what I've learned, of course, is where you invest your time and effort, that has outsized impacts on results, and the results matter in any size business. So I began my career in financial technology, and it started right here. That's where my journey started. I was working in the payments business as it commenced in Canada to undergo a transformative tectonic shift in the industry, where suddenly everyone had the option to choose payment players and solutions. Debit was relatively new in Canada at the time. E-commerce was evolving and growing. And once one could make that choice of capabilities, price, solutions, everything, it was super fast-paced and very competitive. And I actually even competed against Moneris back in the day. I then spent several years living and working around the world, witnessing firsthand this digital evolution. So I saw a merchant in the Czech Republic sell their first goods and services online to an international customer. I saw a financial institution who needed to support infrastructure both in Moscow and Kazakhstan. I saw a consumer in a smaller city in China finally able to pay online, but more importantly in store at their local small business with a QR code and actually manage their life through one super app. I'll come back to that in a second. I've seen and experienced a tuk-tuk driver in Delhi being paid person to person on his phone. And that wasn't a smartphone, that was a flip phone. And I've seen, most recently, a Canadian entrepreneur able to accept payments directly on their Apple iPhone with a tap with no other hardware, no other dongles, nothing. And the common thread in this is that I've seen each of these situations firsthand when people started taking advantage of this shared digitization and the impacts it can have. That despite the overarching trends, each market is a little bit different. They all have their own nuances which set them apart from each other. And understanding that difference between the common elements and the true nuances is really often the key to success. So why is this relevant? it comes back to the similarities of what each of these markets were trying to solve for, yet the differences in how they did it. In businesses, you're typically obviously trying to solve for a particular problem or a particular gap in the marketplace. And for fintechs today, it's about the ongoing digitization across the entire street in every aspect of our lives. Consumers want to pay wherever they are, virtually or physically, and be paid wherever they are, physically or virtually. Businesses want to solve challenges specific to their business needs in their specific business, industry, or vertical. And they want to do it in a more efficient way using digitization. So let me draw some comparisons of how I've seen technology evolve very differently in two different markets. So I was living in Asia, and I was running a business in mainland China as that spectacular growth of in-store Alipay acceptance was followed shortly after by WeChat. Now this was the hyper-growth stage of QR code payments at scale, along with the concept of the super app evolution for consumers. Now QR code payments, of course, are when a consumer scans a merchant's QR code or when the merchant scans a QR code on the phone. And it was a very interesting solution to a socio-economic and technical problem that existed in China at the time. You know, at the time, e-commerce had grown really actually quite large, but the trust in payments was a real problem, and the use of cards was very, very low. And the core payments infrastructure in the country was very fragmented, often unreliable, and particularly as you got more out of the big cities, it was more, in the rural areas, it was really challenging in what at the time was the biggest populated country in the world. The problem then was, how did that market take this large e-commerce payment mechanism and expand it into face-to-face, where payments was primarily cash and point of sale. There weren't a lot of machines or anything else. What they did have were smartphones. So this e-commerce provider, you may have all heard of, Alibaba, the Amazon of China, effectively pulled a Wayne Gretzky and decided to go where the puck was going versus where it would have been. And they took their e-commerce payment option of Alipay and they added the concept of QR codes to enable payments acceptance in person. And that QR code solution and concept exploded across Asia Pacific, where all these countries had similar challenges in solving a core problem in an emerging market. These are large markets where cash was king. There wasn't a lot of payment infrastructure across all these countries. That market now is expected to generate about $35 billion in value by 2030. So this is a great example of taking a non-traditional approach to a complex problem, and it's worked out well in that market, as well as other markets. So what did Alibaba know? They said they knew what the issue was. They were trying to solve this problem of no widespread in-person acceptance. They were trying to solve for connecting buyers and sellers. They were trying to find a unique way to address the issue, and they knew where the world was heading. Now let's look at Canada. 20 years ago in Canada, the overall payment ecosystem was pretty mature. Most people carried multiple cards, acceptance devices were available everywhere, there was trusted systems in place, so the problem to be solved wasn't enabling what they were trying to solve for in China, it was actually enhancing the consumer experience to make it quicker, simpler, and 10 years ago in Canada, about 10% of all in-person transactions were tap. Pre-pandemic in 2019, it was about 50% of transactions. Now, today, fast forward to today, and we see contactless transaction volumes about in the 65 to 70% range. Why? Because the Canadian user's experience is better and faster than what existed before. All sorts of things happen, but the key takeaways are this. The key takeaways are, if one simply looked at China, you would think that QR codes would have exploded in Canada, but they didn't. So why is tap in Canada experiencing such growth? And why does QR codes in Canada remain, at least for now, slightly more specific use codes? Is because when you dig deeper, the same challenge of increasing digitization was occurring, but the underlying problem that was being solved was very, very different. So in a mature market like ours, QR codes can take just a little bit longer. Preferences to change consumers are challenging. Mobile wallets and tap technology are more widespread. So Canada was solving a different problem. And I would add one final thing. I just read recently that Alipay has introduced tap to pay in China over the last summer. I'm going to quickly just touch on Canada. We know these are very, very challenging times in Canada. You know, inflation's high, the era of free money is gone, consumer demands are exploding. But these actually make it a good time to be a founder, right? Because This is a time when great ideas take hold. This is a time when great businesses are born. I want to touch a little bit on Canada, another little tidbit of Canada that is related to the growth of the market. In Canada, 10 of the fastest growing cities in North America are here in Canada. So you'll see when you look down this slide, there's a lot of them here. Whoops. A lot of them here are the top 10 in North America are in Canada. They're all growing. So this is a good market to be in. Halifax is in the 10th spot. So let me quickly go forward to the users of tomorrow, Gen Z. Let me skip forward to Gen Z for a second. So by the way, I'm using Gen Z as the wording here. There we go. We know in Canada that the Generation Z will account for virtually all the significant spending growth through 2035. That's according to a Visa study. That's right. It's not boomers. It's not Gen Xers like me. It's not millennials. It's Gen Z. Gen Z if you're American. And that generation prioritizes things that speak to them on a personal level. Their life stage, their values, addressing their needs of their preferred devices and platforms, and they want to engage wherever and whenever they want. That's the key. Now, we also know, by the way, everyone loves their smartphones in Canada, right? We're living all our lives digitally now. The really thing I want to take away from this is where is your business solution, where is your market headed? At the outset of this presentation, at the start of this, I talked a little bit about 3 things that I thought businesses should consider, especially as they look to grow here in Canada and overseas. Know the market and how technology is evolving. Understand digitization is real, but it impacts differently depending on where and when you use it. And while there may be some pessimism about Canada, we're actually in a truly amazing position to push forward and lead this digital revolution. You can't rest on what you have, but look where your business needs to go and how best to reach your customer. And I think the most important part of what I would leave you with is understand that financial technology, FinTech, technology generally is not the strategy. It's part of the strategy to get you where you want to get to, but it is not the strategy. So know the problem you're solving for, whether it's enabling a country with mobile solutions and doing that through QR codes or tap, or enabling a Gen Z to pay or be paid from wherever they are, that's key. Now, as a Canadian that spent the better part of my career outside of Canada, there's a reason I came back to Canada, and I'm leading Moneris. I'm optimistic about the future of FinTech and business in Canada. I'm fortunate to have returned to lead a Canadian-owned and operated business here. And the breadth of our culture, I think, here in Canada, the stability of our systems, and the consistent innovation that all of you are bringing to the table is truly, truly amazing. So thank you for taking the time to listen to me today. We're exceptionally proud at Moneris to have a relationship with Elevate, whether it's through our sponsorship at the festival or e-commerce North support. We really want to do what we can to help all of you grow business. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the festival.